I'm gonna compress everything I've learned over the last 6 years in the gym into 10 lessons that you can steal and use yourself. So check this out. This is Charles Ernest. He's a bodybuilder from the 1890s. Now this is before steroids, before supplements, before any of the modern science we know and love today. Yet look how jacked he was. What was the training style in the late 1800s and early 1900s like? There were no cables, no optimized machines, and there was a huge emphasis on functional training and gymnastic style training. And people lifted odd objects like sandbags and anvils and shit. And he's just one example. There were countless other guys in the pre-steroid era who got absolutely massive with what would now be considered pretty dated methodology and advice. Things that have been completely disproven by exercise science today. But as a fitness coach for the last 4 years, I have watched the fitness industry take this huge nosedive into believing there is only one correct way to train. You know, people are endlessly re-optimizing exercises to minimize fatigue, hit the target muscles more, all this shit. And don't get me wrong, it's all good stuff. I'm not shitting on science-based lifters. The new shit works, but if it's so optimal, how come people still got insane results all the way back to the 1890s? That's because there's only a few universal principles that really matter when it comes to building a ton of muscle. Training really goddamn hard, eating, sleeping, and hydrating, and progressing your workouts over time. Whether you're doing 30 reps or 5 reps, 2 sets, 4 sets, if those variables I just mentioned hold true, you're gonna make progress. And that brings us to our first main point in today's video. Do whatever routine you have the most fun doing. Train exactly how you want to. So let's get into point number 2. Never neglect the big 3 before your workouts: sleep, hydration, and carbs. When I first started lifting, it was the first good habit I had ever introduced into my life, and all I did was go in there and lift weights. But I wasn't focusing on nutrition, my sleep, my hydration, right? I would just go in there. I would probably get like 3 hours of sleep a night. I would stay up all day playing video games. You know, for lunch, I'd have like chips and cookies and shit, and I wouldn't drink hardly any water. In fact, I mostly just drank brisk iced tea from the vending machine at school instead of water. And then I'd walk my happy ass to the gym with my gym buddy at the time, who was like 6'8", and I would just proceed to have one of the most shit ass workouts of all time. But why does this matter so much? When you sleep like shit, your mental clarity is horrible, you're irritable, and your strength in the gym is just not there. When you're dehydrated, you're weak as hell and you can't get a good pump at all. And when you're hungry and you're not carved up, you're also very weak, and your ability to push through hard sets is not really there. But if you're sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night, drinking a few glasses of water before you get to the gym, and you're eating a small carb-loaded meal about an hour before you work out, you're gonna be in very good hands for that workout, and you're gonna be as strong as you could possibly be. If you ignore everything else in this video, at least do that. But as important as preparation is, you gotta know how to train hard. And what is the telltale sign that you're training hard? If you're hitting failure. But everybody always talks about why you should hit failure, but nobody talks about how to actually do it. The truth is, bro, training to failure is hard, and it actually hurts like shit. And because it hurts like shit, most people never actually take themselves to true failure. And that brings us to point number 3. Learn how to brace yourself for true failure. Have you ever heard of the stub toe method? Well, if you haven't, it's probably because it doesn't exist and I just made it up right now. But think about what you do when you stub your toe. What do? You probably swear, you hold your breath, you sometimes stand on the other toe, right? What you're doing is bracing yourself for pain. Any physical pain we feel always decreases when we are braced for that pain. Now, lifting hurts, right? You can do the same exact thing for lifting, and you can use 4 techniques to do that. Number 1 is bracing your core, okay? When you're getting to the end of a set, you can squeeze your core real hard to give you some more emphasis to use to get that weight down. You can close your eyes. I don't have any science to back up closing your eyes, but anytime I close my eyes and I'm trying to train to failure, it's much easier for me to just focus on the exercise and not get distracted by the fact that it hurts like shit. Number 3, don't be so scared to make noise. It's okay to grunt a little, it's okay to grumble, whatever word you want to use to describe a caveman-like noise. Thanks. All right, you don't want to be screaming in the gym. I mean, that's cringy, but like, make some noise, it's okay. It makes it a lot easier to handle the pain of that workout. And number 4, you can take micro rests, right? When you're getting to the end of a tough set, it's okay to pause in the locked out position for a sec, catch your bearings, and then do another rep. But with great intensity comes great risk, and it's always better to be safe than sorry. Which brings us to point number 4. Invest in some equipment. Knee sleeves, wrist wraps, deadlift straps, and a good belt are all worthwhile investments. Wrist wraps prevent your wrists from bending backwards on pressing exercises, and they generate tons of stability in the wrist, so you avoid wrist pain entirely. I use them on all my pressing exercises and also squats, because when you're doing squats, you got that bar behind your back, putting a lot of pressure on your wrists. Deadlift straps or Versa grips are great tools when you're doing any kind of heavy pulling exercise or a deadlift, right? There's plenty of exercises where your grip strength is not going to be as strong as the target muscle. For instance, on Romanian deadlifts, most people's grip strength isn't as strong as their hamstrings and glutes. But also when you're doing a back exercise, you can put all of that focus just on your back and not on your hands and forearms as well. Now, knee sleeves are especially useful when you're doing a heavy loaded quad movement, like a pressing movement with your quads. Leg press, pendulum squat, hack squat, barbell squats. These are all vital things where you should probably be wearing knee sleeves. Knee sleeves will give you additional stability by keeping those surrounding tendons and ligaments warm and activated, and it's also going to pressurize the area to keep everything more stable. Last but not least, buying a belt is especially useful for heavy compound movements, mostly squat and deadlifts. You can use one on bench, although I don't think it helps that much. When you're bracing your core without a belt, you're just bracing your core. It's tight, it's stable. When you brace your core into the belt, it creates an additional layer of stability, which can really help when you're working with heavy ass shit. Contrary to popular belief, the purpose of the belt is that. It's not necessarily to avoid lower back pain, but in the process of creating more core stability, you probably will avoid lower back pain as well. Now, this equipment becomes more and more necessary with the heavier loads that you use, but the only way to get to those heavier loads is by sticking with exercises for a long period of time. And that brings us to our 5th lesson. Have staple exercises in your routine that you absolutely never take out. Me, for example, I have never taken Romanian deadlifts, squats, bench press, or barbell rows out of my routine. The reason you want to stick with the same exercises for the long haul is because each exercise is a skill. The more you repeat a movement, the more confident you get with it, the better you get at it, the more your body memorizes that movement, you get stronger with it, and you build more muscle. It also just keeps tracking your progress and training more simple in general. When you switch up your routine every few weeks, you spend more time getting used to the movements than you do actually progressing the movements. That doesn't mean you can never change up your workout routine, but at the very least, stick with stuff for at least 3 to 4 months. And the only reason I would even suggest changing anything is if you're plateauing or you're bored, right? You want to be having fun. Now, obviously, keeping your routine simple and progressing in weight and reps is the name of the game, but you don't want to become this guy in the process. So many people stack up a shit list of injuries because they have no standards for their form. Most common mistake I see people make is hitting a certain weight with good form and then immediately moving up into a heavier weight and a heavier weight and a heavier weight, and each time they're sacrificing range of motion, they're sacrificing stability, and they're just using pure momentum to get the weight up. And that's because they never developed a standard for their form. But I don't put it past these people because it feels good to move up in weight. It makes you feel accomplished. It makes you feel like you're leveling up. But you don't want to sacrifice proper technique for the pursuit of heavier weights, because in the long run, it's actually going to hold you back. So I'm going to teach you how to develop a standard form and never deviate from it. And let's use lat pull down for an example. Each exercise you do should have a standard range of motion. You want to start up here and pull down to here. Every lat pull down you do should have that range of motion. Number 2 would be tempo. Most people don't control the tempo on a concentric. Like, you shouldn't control the downward tempo of a lat pull down, but you can surely control the upward tempo. And then you could have a standard for your positioning. You're leaned back a bit, your torso stays in place, and your legs are wedged under the pad. None of that should be askew, right? Let's say your working weight is 100 pounds on lat pull down for 10 to 12 reps. Once you can get 3 sets of 12 reps, then you can move the weight up to 105 or 110, right? But you want your form to stay the same, and you don't want to progress in weight until you can get 3 more clean sets with that clean form. All right, next lesson. Don't be scared to experiment with rep ranges. There's a lot of new shit out there about doing 2 sets of 4 and how low volume is the only way to go because you want to minimize fatigue and volume is the enemy, it's cardio, whatever. But the truth is, both of these methods will build you muscle if you train them hard. For example, on some exercises, I love using low reps. Most compound movements, I like low reps. Squats, I stick with 3 to 5 5, Romanian deadlifts maybe 5 to 8. But then certain movements, I hate doing low reps. Like I don't like doing low reps on a lat pull down, tricep push downs, lateral raises, rear delt flies. All of that shit feels a lot better to me with a higher rep range, like 10 to 15 reps. But you gotta experiment to find what's best for you. You don't have to be so hyper optimal about everything. As long as you're training hard and you feel it well in the target muscles, you're probably on the right track. But no matter how hard you're training or what exercises you're doing, you need to be aware of lesson number 8. Listen to your fucking body, dude. Pain is weakness leaving the body, but pain will leave you without a body if you're stupid about your training. Back when I first started lifting in like 2019, this was a completely foreign concept to me. I just assumed all pain was productive. I'm not even kidding. Like all pain, I was like, oh, it's okay because I'm gonna damage something and I'm gonna come back fucking stronger, bro. And I was lifting 7 days a week with dog shit form. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed every second of it. But luckily, human beings have insanely good instincts. We know when we're hurt, we know when we're feeling something we shouldn't be feeling, and we also know when to stop, if we listen to ourselves. The typical problem people run into is that eventually they fall in love with lifting. It becomes very fun for them, it becomes a staple for their mental health, and instead of taking the necessary time off to recover from a little tweak, ache, or pain, they just push through that pain and they override their natural instinct to stop and recover. I mean, shit, man, I would show up to the gym with like hip pain, shoulder pain, lower back pain, and I just assumed it's okay, I can just push through it and I'll be fine. Like if the thought crosses your mind that this workout or this exercise is probably gonna make this injury worse, you gotta listen to yourself, man. Just don't do it. But I'll drop a 0.5 to this lesson. There's also very easy ways to prevent this overtraining and this pain from even happening. As long as your sleep, nutrition, and hydration are on point, you're probably gonna be recovering well and you're gonna avoid most of these problems. But you should really have at least 2 rest days a week to allow your body to recover. And rest days keep your body feeling good, recovered, and it makes you more confident in your training. And that brings us to lesson number 9, which is an interesting lesson because it's not talked about very much in the fitness industry. And that is feeling as confident as possible when you're going to the gym. The better you feel about yourself mentally, the harder you're gonna train. Like I remember when I was probably at my lowest point in confidence back in high school, you know, I'd show up to the gym kind of unhygienic, you know, not looking my best, a little scraggly, kind of looking like I just rolled out of bed. And I didn't feel very good about my appearance. And I was also not doing well in school, so my confidence in general was just not there. But what happens to your mentality and strength when you actually feel good about yourself? You train much harder and you get this natural primal urge to just slam heavy shit around. It's a great feeling, but it's a great feeling that doesn't exist when you feel shitty about yourself. And there's a few things you can do to increase your confidence in the gym. Number 1 is putting on a good outfit, taking a shower, feeling good, smelling good, right? Now you might think this is stupid advice and it's like corny and it doesn't have much of a purpose, right? Believe it or not, that confidence you get from looking good and smelling good and being hygienic and looking fresh, it's gonna translate well into the weight. Number 2, put a good playlist on. We all know there's certain types of music for each of us that makes us feel like $1 million, right? Me personally, I like putting grunge on in the gym because it makes me feel like a badass. Am I a badass? No, I'm a short little guy and I'm kind of shaped like a fridge and my head has this strange rectangular aura to it. But grunge music makes me feel cool, okay? And there's a certain type of music that will make you feel good and put more emphasis into the weights. And number 3 is having a good day leading up to the gym. If you're starting your day scrolling through TikTok, watching Netflix, smoking weed, you're probably not gonna feel that good about yourself, and that's gonna poorly translate into your workout. But if you start your day, you wake up early, you have a good breakfast, you're productive, you get your to-do list done, you talk to the people you need to talk to, you're gonna go into that workout feeling proud of yourself, which will directly translate to how much strength you put out. It all sounds superficial and stupid, but those 3 things will combine with everything else to make you have insanely good workouts. But the easiest way you can allow these things into your life and allow these other 9 points to happen is by living a distraction-free life. And that brings us to our 10th and final point. You've got to be willing to say no to things that will knock you off course. There's 24 hours in a day, which might sound like a lot, but if you're a human being who's experienced life before, you know 24 hours can go by at the snap of your fingers, right? But that day goes by extra quick if you have a bunch of little distractions pulling your focus off of the things that you want to focus on. You know, TikTok, Instagram, sadly, YouTube, Netflix, drugs, alcohol, gambling, sports betting, whatever the hell it is, right? These are things that can easily knock you off course. And when you're trying to get in the best shape of your life, the number one factor that leads to inconsistency is distraction. You don't have to say yes to that friend group that wants to go out drinking every day of the week. You don't always have to go to your mother-in-law's house and eat pie and cake. And it's okay to say no to plans that interfere with your gym schedule. That doesn't mean you should never have fun or let loose, but trim the fat. Get rid of the activities that don't contribute to you becoming better, that make you kind of feel like shit after you're done doing them, like scrolling and eating too much food, right? Get rid of that stuff. And that's the end of the video. But literally none of the stuff we talked about today will matter if you don't find a way to absolutely fall in love with the gym. So check out the video I have linked above about how I strategically got myself so obsessed with lifting weights that taking a day off was the hardest part. And until next time, take it easy, bro.